Okay. Our second item is receive a report and provide direction on proposed expedited permitting procedures for small residential rooftop solar systems.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. In 2014, the state passed a new law, AB 2188, also known as the Expedited Solar Permitting Act, which mandates that each city and county in the state of California adopt an expedited permitting ordinance by September 30th, 2015 for small residential rooftop solar systems. The purpose of this state mandate is to establish and implement a consistent statewide standard to achieve timely and cost-effective installation of small rooftop solar systems throughout our communities. The ordinance would apply to rooftop solar systems that meet standard building, fire, and municipal code requirements, such as our requirement for maximum building heights. And this provision would apply to 1- and 2-family homes. So single and duplex homes is what this ordinance would apply to. And we're talking about smaller systems. So the systems we're talking about are systems that would be roof-mounted, not placed on the ground. They would be systems that would cover perhaps up to about 3,200 square feet of rooftop area, so smaller systems. This ordinance would not apply to the routine operation and maintenance of systems that are already in place, and no permits would be required for those that already exist. If, though, somebody comes in and wants to do a substantial renovation of an existing small rooftop solar system, a permit would be required. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we do currently to compare with what's being required by the state law. So currently here in San Bruno, a resident would come into the Community Development Department and apply at the counter typically, and there would be a 10-day review period and a permit would be issued. Our inspectors would go out. There typically would be 2 inspections. One inspection would be to look at the placement or installation of the rack on the roof, and the second inspection would have to do with looking at the electrical system and any signage. And that inspection would typically occur soon after, within a day or two after issuance of a building permit. What's being requested is that this process be streamlined and expedited and made cost-effective. So what we've done, we've taken the model ordinance provided by the state and we've adapted that model ordinance to the City of San Bruno, and we've attached a copy of a proposed ordinance for you to review. The expectation is that we would respond to any questions you may have regarding this proposed ordinance this evening, and then bring it back to you for introduction and first reading, and then for an action, and to do that prior to the assigned or mandated date of September 30th, 2015. Now, what's being asked for in terms of expedited processing, the idea really is to allow for over-the-counter review and permit issuance, and also to allow for residents within the local communities to submit applications electronically, either by email or fax, and to be able to turn around those applications quickly. So, for example, at the counter, the idea would be same day. If everything is in order, if basically the applications are complete and accurate, we would issue a permit the same day. If the applications are submitted electronically, the idea is that we would review and approve, if they're in order, within 1 to 3 days. And then we would do an inspection within 24 hours after the permit is issued, and we do a single inspection. So, as I mentioned earlier, currently we split it between the rooftop mounting and the electrical. The idea is the inspector would go out within 24 hours of issuance of the permit, do 1 inspection. So that would streamline and expedite the process. The draft ordinance that we've attached to our staff report would do that. And in fact, what we've done already in anticipation of this ordinance is that our building division in community development has trained the staff, all of our staff, our counter techs, our code enforcement officers, our building official, our inspectors are all trained in this process. So we're prepared to go forward with this expedited review. In terms of fees and fiscal impact, currently we do charge for this process, and our fees that we currently charge, we charge $261 for permit issuance. And if a panel needs to be replaced, an electrical panel needs to be replaced in addition to the permit, and that $261 is for the plan review, permit issuance, and inspection. If a panel is required, there would be an additional $673.26. AB 2188 indicates that we need to make sure that this process is also cost-effective and gives certain guidelines in terms of how much we can charge. Our existing fees, what we charge currently, is well within what is indicated in AB 2188. And in fact, as our building official checked around with other local communities, our current fees are at the lower end of what communities charge for these services. So at this point, given the training that we've provided to staff, given the fees that we have in place, and the proposed draft ordinance before you, we believe as staff that we can go forward and comply with AB 2188. And we would be happy this evening to respond to any questions you might have regarding the draft ordinance. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the idea would be to come back for introduction and action, and to do that as required by state law by September 30th. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for David? Ken?
Well, first I want to respond to over $600 for a panel change. Why is that? I mean, can you explain that cost? I understand what it takes to replace a panel, and I know that's an expensive undertaking.
It is.
For the electrician.
Right.
But what is the inspection process for that justifies, 600? That's what, 3 hours worth of inspection or multiple inspections?
It's not just the inspection, it's also the plan review. So it's the review in-house of the plan submitted and the field inspection combined. And this is a fee we've had in place for some time and has gone through a review in terms of what cost recovery is. And again, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of comparing with other jurisdictions,
okay,
our cost is well within what others are charging. In fact, it's significantly lower than what other jurisdictions are charging.
I'd be more concerned that we pay more attention to cost recovery than how much lower we are than our neighbors. So,
Agreed.
Okay. Now, as far as the mandate, what's the big rush? I mean, why is the state taking this particular project and saying that it has to be over the counter or it has to be expedited? Can you explain how the state explained that to the cities?
Sure, I'd be happy
Yeah.
to do that. I think in reading the legislation and background materials for the legislation, the state sees a huge opportunity in terms of energy efficiency to incentivize, encourage individual homeowners to come in and place solar collectors on their homes to do a variety of things, to heat water, provide electricity, etc. So they see this as an opportunity for energy conservation and want to incentivize and create consistent standards throughout the state.
My concern is we've explained some electrical issues, and this really concerns me. Is that do we know who you're paying a permit that you're going to get over the counter, whether there's a document, whether there's a brochure or something, whether there is a company representative coming in, or whether it's a homeowner doing a do-it-yourself project, and is bringing in an electrician, to do wiring in a roof. I'm not familiar with any of this stuff, and to now lump it all into, one inspection? I mean, I thought your policy was fine initially to, come out and check the rack, check the constructions, basically checking the attachment to the roof.
Correct.
It is a roof. It's not
Correct.
a water heater. It's not a smoke detector or something. It is a roof, and then there's wires. And, to rush that along. So, I mean, I'm just sort of venting on this because I know how the state does this. They tell you what you have to do and how you have to do it and implement it or else. So I'm just concerned that we look at those applicants, a little closer, even though we're committed to, providing them expedited service, that they really know what they're doing, because it's, a proliferation of roof-mounted solar panels with electrical work, and obviously all it takes is one that's miswired or something.
We agree, and I think the state does as well. And in the draft ordinance, you'll notice that there's a requirement for an expedited process, and that process includes a requirement for the city to put together a detailed checklist in terms of the application requirements. So we will do that, and it's required that we do that within 30 days of adoption of the ordinance. And the idea is when an application comes in, they'll have the information beforehand. The application needs to comply with the information stated on that checklist in order to get the expedited review. So if it's incomplete or inaccurate, it's sent back, and we'll make sure it's done right. So there will be a checklist. The applications need to comply. Our staff is trained. Our inspectors are trained. So I think we can move forward with this in a safe, efficient, and streamlined manner.
I feel much better. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else? Irene?
Just curious, David, do you know how many on average of these kinds of permits we deal with a year?
On average, I don't know annually. I could probably multiply it out. I talked to our building official about it, and we talked about activity, and he was saying a couple of weeks, something like that, is what we're experiencing. In the staff report, what I mentioned is that we will monitor the activity, because the expectation is that this application, this type of application, would be given a priority. So we'll make sure that we monitor how many come in. Right now, given this level of activity, 2 or 3 or so a week, that shouldn't be a problem at all. If the activity increases, we'll need to look at that. But right now, as I mentioned, all of the staff have gone through training. In fact, they're all certified. There was a training program with certification for this particular program. Counter technicians, inspectors, et cetera, building officials. So we've got many different individuals in the department that can actually review and process these applications. I don't expect a problem.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else? Direction to David? Bring it back?
Okay.
Everybody agree?
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.